Come on, call you through to police.
Please, we need please, return the door in, please, we need assistance to go.
Clarify that that's you.
That he's not anyone
Shall I
else.
can clarify that's
Let
you?
me speak, officer.
Listen,
Have
you need
got
to calm
anyone
down.
else? No,
You need to calm down, otherwise you're going to be arrested for the public order offence. You're shouting and screaming.
I'm on camera.
Shouting and screaming.
You did. Look at you.
You've stopped saying for
Let's go, you little mutt.
See you later.
You little fat mutt.
You need to calm yourself down, lads.
Early morning, Liverpool was shrouded in a thick fog, the red brick streets covered in a cold, damp, heavy cloak. On the switchboard, a call came in at 5:42 a.m. "Hello, police, please. Come quickly." The voice was low, indistinct, not shouted, but it was the hushed whisper that sent a shiver down the spine of the operator. There was no gunshot, no scream, just something unspoken, but so obviously threatening that they were forced to gamble to pick up. Something was wrong. Wrong in the way the neighborhood had held its breath for weeks. Windows were closed, eyes were averted, children stopped laughing after school, and police cars just drove by without a signal. But the silence was the clearest warning. Something was happening, not loudly, not quickly, but creeping into every alley. And today, we're going to track it down. Liverpool, a city of football and music, is no stranger to urban legends. But in the heart of Anfield, a place that holds fond memories for millions of fans, lies a much darker reality. Here, a group of 3 young men have built up one of the biggest drug trafficking networks in the Northwest. Edward Murphy, only 26, has a fearless demeanor, having been seen setting off fireworks on city center rooftops as if to make Liverpool aware of him. Jamie Jarvis, 29, is his right-hand man, carrying out orders and controlling a supply chain that stretches from Manchester to Cornwall. Stephen Harrison, 28, is quieter, but is a key link in the chain, coordinating finances and communications. They do not act alone. The gang recruited hundreds of underage gang members, including minors, coordinated via encrypted phone calls, and used cuckoo tactics to seize addicts' homes as bases. All this in a city that seemed peaceful, until the community began to feel that its children were no longer safe outside their homes. In 2010, when several major gangs in the northwest of England were dismantled, the Class A drug market was left in a vacuum, a golden opportunity for those bold and ambitious enough. From a modest house in Anfield, Liverpool, 3 young men quietly entered the game. They were not alone. With close ties to Francis Fan, a middleman who could supply heroin and cocaine up to 88% pure, the group quickly took advantage. Supply routes were established from Merseyside to Greater Manchester and all the way to Devon and Cornwall. But their ambition was not limited to trading. They wanted total control. Every new territory was theirs, every dealer theirs. And as profits grew, they began recruiting more people, expanding their network, even sending minors to occupy addicts' homes to turn them into transit bases. From there, the initial motivation, making money, gradually turned into a thirst for power and a blind confidence that no one could touch the empire they were building brick by brick in the dark. For more than 6 years, from 2010 to 2016, the criminal network run by Edward Murphy, Jamie Jarvis, and Stephen Harrison spread from Anfield across the north of England like an unseen disease. Every day, from the back streets of Liverpool, packages of Class A drugs, heroin and cocaine, were shipped secretly but regularly to towns such as Lancaster, Manchester, Bradford, Devon, and Cornwall. The operation was not a small-scale artisanal operation. It was a well-run, hierarchical system with a command center, a warehouse, and a 24/7 retail distribution network. Keepers like William Searle kept the drugs in safes scattered throughout residential areas, ready to supply on demand. Each locality had its own underage decoys, boys under the age of 16, who were sent from Liverpool to distant towns to occupy addicts' homes and turn them into supply bases. The tactic, known as cuckooing, was not only inhumane but also extremely effective. Homeowners were too weak to protest, and the police could not investigate without someone reporting them. In addition, the communication system between executives and their agents operated via encrypted telephones, often EncroChat, making every transaction difficult to trace. Intermediaries were assigned clear roles. Those in charge of delivering the goods, those collecting the money, those cutting the lines, and those monitoring other smuggling groups to eliminate competition. Certain areas, such as West Yorkshire and Devon, became hotspots, with local gangs refusing to budge and suffering a series of attacks, from beatings to arson and even shootings. The Anfield gang did not hide. On the contrary, they flaunted their lavish lifestyles with swagger. While dozens of their agents subsisted on shabby apartments, the gang leaders splashed out on supercars, champagne, luxury hotels, and Rolex watches. Murphy once spent £6,000 a month on a new Range Rover, which they used to parade around the streets as police and residents watched helplessly. Worse still, they openly defied the authorities, filming themselves insulting and humiliating police on duty, then posting them online as a way of demonstrating their invulnerability. Every time they were stopped for a check, they didn't run away. They confronted the police, filming them back, deliberately creating conflict to intimidate them. An entire underground force operated in broad daylight, in the middle of the city, with no one daring to confront it, until a few mistakes began to appear and the chain of criminal dominoes slowly collapsed.
Listen, lads. Listen. Calm the aggression down.
And go now.
Don't tell me
leave.
what to
I'll
do.
tell you what
Don't
to
tell
do.
me what to do.
You come here disturbing people. We've been to a
468.
funeral all day, and you're
Calm yourself down.
Big scene. You're meant to be a
Calm yourself
Why have you
down.
stopped me, though? Why have you stopped us?
Calm
We've been at
yourself.
a
I've
funeral all
stopped
day.
you.
Go.
I know that until I speak to you.
Why have you stopped me?
Come here.
What do you want?
Come here.
You got
Clarify that
any
that's you.
suspicions that he's not anyone
Till that I
else?
can
Wait,
clarify
mate,
that's
let
you.
me speak off a second.
Listen,
Have
you
you
need
got
to calm
anyone
down.
else? No.
You need to calm down, otherwise you're
Remember
going to be
the
arrested for the public
What
order
for?
offence. You're shouting and screaming.
I'm on camera.
You're shouting and
You
screaming.
there. Look at you. You've stopped in front of all witnesses. You little mutt.
See you later.
Little fat mutt.
You need to calm yourself down, lads.
You little rat. You little
Yeah, can I have a
scumbag
further
mutt.
patrol here, please?
You little rat. You little rat. Look at you, Graham, the little
Come here
rat.
and say it.
The investigation began not with an explosion or a body, but with silence. An unusually long silence in the neighborhoods around Anfield, where residents suddenly stopped cooperating with police, schools reported unusually high levels of absenteeism, and luxury hire cars appeared and disappeared like ghosts in the night. Merseyside Police, who had received numerous reports of drug activity from residents, began to put the pieces together. At first, it was routine checks, random stops to record number plates, and facial recognition. But gradually, a picture emerged, with Anfield at its center and routes stretching as far afield as Devon, Cornwall, and Yorkshire. The first big clue came when the police tracked down a string of short-term rentals linked to the cuckoo cases. From there, they began closely monitoring people who came and went at these addresses, recording images, pulling traffic cameras, and even attaching tracking devices to some of the suspect vehicles. Each time a small dealer was caught, the police did not rush to prosecute. They used the opportunity to expand the investigation, to find out who was directing the operation. But the real breakthrough came with EncroChat, an encrypted messaging system that criminals once believed was impenetrable. When international intelligence forces, a joint effort between France and the Netherlands, broke the encryption of the system, tens of thousands of messages were uncovered. Among them was a series of exchanges that showed shipment routes, instructions for violence, and even a list of distributors run by Murphy, Jarvis, and Harrison. Merseyside Police, with support from the National Crime Agency, NCA, carried out a 16-month sting operation, not making arrests in a hurry, but gradually tightening the circle from the outside in. The fringe dealers were caught first, then the decoys, and finally the higher-ups like William Searle and Francis Fan. Each raid was carried out like a mini-battle, with weapons, flares, and police in body armor. One of the most dramatic twists came when William Searle tried to escape by climbing onto the roof of the Dockers Club, but was arrested shortly afterwards. Meanwhile, in Lancaster, 2 under-16s were found hiding in a small hotel after a thrilling chase through the town. The entire investigation was not only to expose the ringleaders, but also to sever the entire supply chain, a system that thrives on violence, fear, and seemingly unbreakable phones. But that belief in invincibility made them complacent and left traces. And for the police, just a small crack is enough to start the collapse of an entire shadow empire. The Anfield gang operated as a sophisticated criminal enterprise with a clear hierarchical structure. Edward Murphy was the leader, issuing strategic orders. Jamie Jarvis coordinated the transport and controlled the territory, and Stephen Harrison handled finance and communications. Francis Fan was the main supplier, ensuring the purity of the drugs. Regional agents such as William Searle managed the warehouses and local operatives. However, it was the ostentation and lack of confidentiality from key members that created the cracks that led to its collapse. After more than a year of tracking every move, every encrypted call, and every transit point, Merseyside Police, working with the National Crime Agency, NCA, finally launched their full-scale raid. There was no warning, no time for anyone to escape. Raids were launched simultaneously in Liverpool, Manchester, Bradford, Devon, and elsewhere in the early hours of a September morning in 2017. In luxury rented apartments, police seized a wide range of evidence, from high-purity Class A drugs to cash stuffed into sports bags, Rolex watches, code books, and even pistols and machine guns hidden under floor tiles and false ceilings. In one notable arrest, William Searle, a key cog in the chain of custody at Anfield, climbed onto the roof of the old Dockers Club to escape, but was too late. When he was cornered, he threw an improvised explosive device at police, causing at least 4 minor injuries. At a small hotel in Darwin, 2 teenagers, who had been used as decoys, were arrested after a thrilling chase through a residential area. Among the items seized were heavy fireworks which Edward Murphy had used to launch from rooftops in the city center as a show of force on special occasions. The entire network was exposed, with more than 100 people directly or indirectly involved in the transport, distribution, and laundering of money. Police seized more than 10 kilograms of Class A drugs, 50,000 pounds in cash, 6 guns, and hundreds of items of evidence from the encrypted system. But the evidence was overwhelming. Thousands of deciphered coded messages revealing every transaction, every command, and even the plotting of revenge against potential rivals. When the case was handed to Liverpool Crown Court, prosecutors presented more than 5,000 pages of evidence, including transcripts of messages, CCTV footage, and testimony from anonymous witnesses. The once untouchable ringleaders were forced to bow their heads. All 21 defendants pleaded guilty, a rarity in large-scale gangland cases. Francis Fan, the central supplier, was sentenced to 11 years and 4 months. Edward Murphy, Jamie Jarvis, and Stephen Harrison were sentenced to the same terms, 11 years and 4 months each. Other members were sentenced to between 4 and 9 years, including William Searle, John Mangan, Stephen Gandhi, and Ricky Duran. The 2 teenagers, all under 16, were not charged but were placed in a special rehabilitation program with a curfew. During the trial, the prosecutor repeatedly stressed, this was more than just a drug trafficking organization. This was a shadowy empire that lived on silence, violence, and twisted loyalties. The total sentence of 135 years was not just punishment, it was also a warning to those who thought that their power in the shadows could last forever. As they left the courtroom, one of the lead detectives said quietly, in the end, it was their flamboyance and arrogance that gave them away. They didn't have to pull out their guns, they just had to talk too much. It was a quiet but powerful end to 6 years of rule by a gang that had held Liverpool's breath. Liverpool is slowly returning to normal, but the shadow of 6 years of domination is still fresh in many people's memories. No one will forget the unusually quiet nights, the averted eyes, and the feeling of helplessness as whole neighborhoods were controlled by drug dealers. The case is closed, the verdict has been handed down, but the question remains, how many people have been silent for too long? And if tomorrow another network emerges, who will be the first to speak out? The answer could be you.